Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1586B, and today's date is June 7th, 2018, and the title of the episode is The Agenda Break World Order, Elite Meet to Counter. Let's get into the economic collapse, political, and geopolitical news. Now, when we talk about the deep state and we talk about how much trouble they're in and how they're being pushed against the wall, we can see there is so much information coming out that is just completely unbelievable. Right now, Peter Strzok, the FBI counterintelligence agent, he apparently played a more central role than previously known in both the Russia and Hillary Clinton investigations. Remember, yesterday we talked about how Bill Priestap was going to be testifying behind closed doors. And guess what? Information is coming out now saying that, well, it looks like Peter Strzok, he was involved a lot more than we even thought he was involved. We also learned in May that Peter Strzok went on a secret trip to London in the summer of 2016 to meet with the Australian ambassador, Alexander Downer, to describe his meeting with Trump campaign advisors George Papadopoulos. The FBI kept details of the operation secret from most of the Department of Justice, with only about 5 Justice Department officials aware of the full scope of the case. Now we have the Department of Justice. Well, they're planning to show senior lawmakers several highly classified documents in an additional briefing on the FBI's use of spy as part of counterintelligence operation on the Trump campaign. A senior Department of Justice official said that the so-called Gang of Eight will have the opportunity next Monday or Tuesday to review the additional documents which were not furnished during a high-level classified briefing in May. Now, the group includes Devin Nunes, Adam Schiff, Richard Burr, Mark Warner, Paul Ryan, Nancy Pelosi, Mitch McConnell, and Chuck Schumer. Now, Halper, who was the spy who infiltrated the Trump campaign, also corresponds with 2 of the 4 targets of the FBI's Operation Crossfire Hurricane. Halper's involvement in spying on the Jimmy Carter campaign ahead of the 1980 U.S. elections has been well documented, and evidence that Halper received $1 million in academic contracts from the Obama Pentagon going back to 2012 is not in dispute. In fact, it's easily verifiable public record, with $282,000 awarded in 2016, $129,000 in 2017, which is $411,000 combined. Now, the entire point of Spygate is that the Obama administration paid a known FBI and CIA asset whose father-in-law was Ray Klein, former deputy director of the CIA, over $1 million in contracts through the Department of Defense. The FBI Department of Justice then spied on the Trump campaign for the FBI in an unprecedented abuse of power, while also using an unverified dossier assembled by former British spy, which used high-level Kremlin sources to obtain FISA warrants to surveil former Trump aide Carter Page. And we can see that all of this now is starting to come out. Now, Trump went out and he tweeted something very interesting. And every time he tweets, he's trying to bring this into the public domain and slowly spoon feed the public to get them used to what is coming. Just like he talked about the spying on his campaign, talked about the FISA warrants. Slowly, he let this out. And of course, the corporate media all laughed at it and said, this is ridiculous. They wouldn't do that. And then we come to find out that, yeah, this is true. They were doing this, and actual people signed off on it. And there is documentation that leads to each of these individuals. And we learned that Clapper, Brennan, they lied about it, what that was really going on. And we see right now that Trump is out there, and he tweeted that our Justice Department must not let Awan and Debbie Wasserman Schultz off the hook. The Democrat IT scandal is a key to much of the corruption we see today. They want to make a plea deal to hide what is on their server. Where is the server? Really bad. And I believe they already know where the server is. I think they already know what's on that server. From the data that is kept in the NSA and from military intelligence. They already have that information. They just need to do this legally to get the server looked at. Maybe they wiped it already. We know they have the ability to do that with BitClean and all these other types of programs that wipe the servers clean. But we see right now he's bringing this out into the open, letting people know this is where all of this is headed. And we'll probably see a lot more of this. Now we see that the U.S. has struck a deal with the ZTE company in China. This is Chinese telecom giant ZTE. And remember with Q, ZTE was very important because the ZTE phones, they were used by the deep state. Now they ordered these phones and they thought they were going to be secure. They didn't want cameras. They didn't want any type of open ports or anything on the phones. And it come to find out that actually this was the opposite. Now, the deep state, they tried to buy tons of these ZTE phones before they got big in the U.S., just for the government officials, and specifically went to the manufacturers to request that the phones be totally secure. No backdoors, no ability to be hacked, no camera, and microphone monitoring. Now, this was either right before Obama took office or possibly the same year. Well, guess what? The Chinese did the opposite. They installed backdoors on those secret phones, and they could monitor the government officials up to the highest ranks. The cameras worked, there were microphones and everything else. And we know that there were certain individuals that had these phones. Some people saying that Clinton was carrying these phones, and many others. And we talked about with Q a video of Clinton. And I'm wondering if this is how the videos, the audio, all of this was captured through these phones. Now, if we go back in time, we understand that Trump wanted a reorganization of the company. They were also going to hit them with a fine. I think they're going to hit them with a $1 billion penalty against ZTE. And that a compliance team selected by the U.S. would be embedded at the company. Now, there's other parts of the deal that we don't know of as of yet, because they haven't been revealed, but I'm sure there's a lot more that's going to be let out for the public to hear, and maybe some of it will be secret. We don't know as of yet. We also have a strange occurrence in China at the U.S. consulate in China, and we're getting information about another sonic boom where it's making the people feel ill, and people are leaving the consulate. And this happened in Cuba. And the question we need to ask is why? Why is it happening in both places? Now, is the deep state embedded in these consulates? Now, how do you get the individuals out without really taking anything and not having them come back for a while? Well, you can use a sonic boom, force everyone out, send a team in there to check out the whole area, collect certain data that you need, and maybe target the deep state. I mean, this is just one theory, but we can see right now this is very, very odd for this to be happening in both places. Now, we see out in Europe, European countries are not going along with George Soros or Merkel's flexible EU immigration plan. And we see right now the Czech Republic, Italy, and many other countries are saying, listen, we're not joining this new flexible European Union strategy for refugee migration, which is being pushed by Angela Merkel. And we can see right now the Prime Minister of Czech Republic is saying, absolutely not, we're not doing this. And we see that Italy, they are not doing this. And we're going to see that Spain and other countries, they're going to say, you know something, we're not doing this either. And we could see that there's still a push to bring these refugees into each and every one of these countries with open borders. But what we're seeing right now is the opposite happening. We don't have the same refugee crisis that we had back in 2012, 2013, 14, 15, 16, 17. Because what is happening right now is that refugees, millions of them, are headed back to their countries. This is why Soros is down in Africa trying to get refugees up into Europe, because the Middle East, that's a bust. And it's not helping the situation where individuals want to go back to their country and not into Europe. So this is a problem for them, and they're continually trying to push their agenda to have all these refugees move into these areas. We see out in Afghanistan, President Ghani now announced a ceasefire with the Taliban. The ceasefire is going to be until June 20th. Now, we had wind of this from one of the generals, I think it was Nicholson, in Afghanistan, who was leaving and being replaced by Miller, where he said there were secret talks in the background about a ceasefire. Right now, there is a ceasefire, and this is with the Taliban. The Afghanistan forces are still going after the Islamic State. That is still on. The U.S. fighters are still going after the Islamic State. But there is a ceasefire until June 20th. They're going to have discussions, meetings, most likely about bringing the Taliban and the Afghanistan government together. And this is the endgame plan where the U.S. forces, once again, would not be needed in Afghanistan. Remember, these wars that we're in Afghanistan, in Iraq, in Syria, in Libya, in Sudan, in Somalia, all of these were created by the deep state. The deep state created them because they had a plan. They used their terrorist groups in each and every one of these areas to create these scenarios and make them completely unstable and keep the wars going for a very long time. Why? Because they needed control over these areas to control the petrodollar. That's what they were doing. We see the Iraqi parliament. They're ordering a full recount of the May 12th vote. Now, this is nearly a month after the May 12th Iraqi election, and the final results look like they're still far away. The Iraqi parliament on Wednesday announced that they are ordering a full recount of 11 million votes that were counted. It looks like a body does not like the outcome of the votes, and he wants it all recounted. And again, the election results, they were not in favor of the deep state. The election results were really against foreign powers coming into that country. That was the elected body. That was the platform they were running on. And once again, we can see that, well, it looks like somebody's not happy with this. Now, out in Iran, we understand that Europe, Iran, they are continually communicating with each other about the Iran nuclear deal. We know that Trump canceled this deal. And we can see right now that the European refiners are now unofficially winding down all oil purchases from Iran. Europe's largest refiner, Total, does not intend to request a waiver to continue crude oil trading with Iran after November 4th. Ministers from Germany, the UK, and France, along with the EU foreign policy chief, have signed a letter asking the U.S. to allow its companies to continue to trade with Iran and spare certain industries from punitive measures. The big question is whether China, which has been making aggressive inroads into Chinese commerce in recent years, which recently launched a new train landline to Iran, and whose state-owned oil giant CNPC, the world's third largest oil and gas company by revenue behind Saudi Aramco and the National Iranian Oil Company, is now set to take over the role held by Total in a huge gas project in Iran. And we see that the European refiners, well, they're winding down their oil purchases in Iran. So are they folding? Did the deal with Iran and Europe, did that not come together? It's starting to look that way. We see the YPG out in Syria in the Kurdish area. They are withdrawing right now from Manbij, which we said before in prior reports, and it looks like they're going to be concluding the withdrawal in the next couple of days, and they'll be completely out. Russia is out there saying that they have no plans to leave Syria whatsoever. They're not planning to pull all its troops out of Syria at the present time, and they will stay as long as it is beneficial for Russia in order to fulfill international obligations. And I don't think Russia is going to be going anywhere anytime soon, because they will be protecting everything that they fought for in Syria They have deals with Syria. They have economic deals with Syria. And I don't believe they're going to be going anywhere. And they're not going to let the U.S. or anyone else destroy what they fought for in this country. And they're very, very close into pushing out all foreign invaders out of the country. And I think that is the next step. Now, yesterday we talked about how the G6 plus one, which is really the G7, how they're really upset with Trump. And they're saying that, the world is on fire. Merkel said this. Merkel also said that the U.S. is trying to break world order. Now, let's think about that for a second. We know that they had a certain agenda, and when everything is going smoothly the way they want, everything is great, they don't really care. Now, everything is up in the air, and all of these deep state operatives, all these individuals, they don't like what's going on. And Merkel pretty much said it, that the U.S. is trying to break world order, trying to break what they were building over this long period of time. And this is not something that they want. And you can see that they're really upset about this. I mean, think about what has happened in the past. The TPP, completely gone. The Paris Accord, the U.S. didn't join. The Iranian deal, canceled. The digging into what the deep state has been doing, it is continuous, ongoing right now. The plan they had with North Korea, canceled. We're having peace. The plans they had with Syria, Iraq, Lebanon, Libya, Ukraine, and the rest, done for. They've been trying all these years, could not get anywhere. They're paid mercenary armies. Well, they're done. There's no revenue coming in, and with all the executive orders, guess what's happening? Their assets are being seized, and their covert operations are being shut down, and the deep state, one by one, they're being exposed. But we see that there's the secretive Bilderberg meeting, which is held annually, and it looks like it's that time of year again when the world's richest and the most powerful business executives, bankers, media heads, and politicians gather for their highly secretive Bilderberg conference. And this is a high-security 3-day summit, which kicks off today in Italy. And basically, what they're going to be talking about is populism in Europe, the inequality challenge, the future of work, artificial intelligence, the U.S. before midterms, free trade, U.S. world leadership, Russia, quantum computing, Saudi Arabia and Iran, the post-truth world, current events. In other words, why do Europeans care so much about their borders, language, and culture? How do we keep blaming Russia for said populism? What to do once AI and automation replace most jobs? How to shape narratives in post-truth world where nobody believes the mainstream media anymore? And what's really funny about this is that they're having this meeting in Italy, and Italy just took major steps towards populism after the country's anti-immigrant League Party formed a populist coalition with the Five Star Party. So this is kind of odd that they're having it there, and they're talking about how they can stop all of this in the same place where populism is happening. I mean, the irony is just unbelievable here. We also see that the whole post-truth discussion will likely revolve around fake news, and they're trying to figure out how they can combat this. Now, they tried many different methods with Facebook, they tried it with Google, with fact-checking, and everything else, taking down channels, giving them strikes, trying to shut everyone down. It just hasn't worked. Many channels were shut down, but they were brought back up. Many channels were given strikes, but again, those strikes only last for a 3-month period, and if you don't get any other strikes on your YouTube channel, that strike goes away. And they hit many channels. They hit the Spotlight channel, which I have, the X22 Report. They hit strike there, and they kept giving strikes. And again, they tried to shut the channels down by trying to push 3 strikes on the big individuals. And we saw that many channels were brought down, then they were brought back up. And we see that they're trying to figure out a way to basically shut all of this down. And we can see with many of the laws that are being passed right now, they're using a form of censorship. Think about this. Back in the day before there was the internet or anything like that, to shut things down, to shut publications down, to shut what other people were saying down, what'd they do? They burned books. They figured if we burn all the books, and it was a selected number of books that they burned, if we burn those, then no one would know anything else. And did that work? No. They're doing the same thing now. I mean, instead of burning, they're just shutting it down. If we shut this channel down, no one could hear it. If we shut that channel down, nobody can hear it. We're safe. Throughout history, this doesn't work. Because if you shut this channel down or that channel down, there's another one that's going to be created, and another one that's going to be created. It cannot be stopped. And if it's not on that platform, it'll be another platform. Same thing with publishing a book. If the publishers didn't want to publish a book, guess what? People would find another way to publish the book. The same thing's happening today. I mean, this is censorship. I mean, people look back in time and they say, oh, that's terrible. They're burning the books. They should allow the people to read them. Well, they're not saying it today, but in the future, looking back, they'll say, wow, do you remember when they were shutting down channels? They were trying to censor people. And people would say, do you think that will happen today? Yes, history continually repeats itself because those who get into power, they love their power. They love control, and they don't want anyone speaking out against them. So what do they have to do? They have to shut those people down. And again, everyone has a right to free speech. Doesn't mean you have to listen. Doesn't mean you have to agree. Doesn't mean that you have to continually listen to them. You can shut them off. You can go listen to the people that you like. But the purpose of free speech is not to say this person is allowed and that person isn't allowed. Everyone is allowed, and you have the choice to listen or not. And if it's something that you don't want to listen to, you don't listen to it. The people will decide who they want to listen to. This is why shows and channels and people speaking, this is why some have very high viewerships. So this is why some have very low viewerships, because in the end, the people decide what they want and what they don't want. Even if the corporations, even if governments, even if those in power try to push what they think we want on us, it doesn't mean that the people agree. Just like they continually push the mainstream media on us and they say, yes, this is the real news. This is the real news. We're all following a script. You have to believe us. The people decide, you know something? I don't believe them. I'm going to look someplace else. The people will always win out in this fight. So it doesn't matter that these elite are planning and scheming and doing whatever they want. They've been doing it for a very long time. In the end, throughout history, the people will decide. Once the people realize what is going on and who the true enemy is, they will band together and fight that enemy. And of course, then it repeats over again because people forget and people become comfortable and they don't realize what's going on. And those in power start to take more and more power until it reaches a certain point, and that we are at that point right now. And this is why we see everything happening at this point in time. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.